Welcome to the Reconnection Club podcast, the show that helps parents heal troubled relationships with their adult sons and daughters. I'm your host, psychotherapist Tina Gilbertson. Each week, I'll offer you compassion, clarity, and personal development tips designed to help you reconnect, not only with your child, but with yourself. Now let's get started. The question of whether to use an intermediary to contact an estranged adult child is one that comes up from time to time in the Reconnection Club forums. And it's often because someone, either a relative or a family friend usually, makes that offer to the parent. They say, "Would you like me to try and talk to your child?" And that immediately creates a dilemma for the parent. Because of course they want to do anything possible to reunite with the child, but they're not sure that sending in the cavalry will have a positive effect. And worse, it might even have a negative effect and make the estrangement worse or prolong it. So the question of whether to make use of a sympathetic third party is far from being a no-brainer. On today's show, I want to talk about some concerns that I personally have about the use of intermediaries that might help explain why parents' instincts not to rush into that are often correct. I counted 7 separate concerns I have about the use of a third party to reach out to your estranged child. I was pretty surprised to find out that I had that many, but there it is. So here they are. Number 1. Taking ownership of the problem requires that you do everything you can on your own behalf before enlisting help. You certainly don't want to start with someone else or send in someone else after just a single attempt that didn't bear fruit. Instead, make sure you educate yourself to the point where you've developed some understanding of what's motivating the estrangement, and that you've made some strategic attempts to reach out. And you may need to do that over time, so make sure you've put in your own efforts before even considering going through an intermediary. Number 2, if you have a no-contact request, either overt or implied, then contact from anyone on your behalf will get counted against you, not them. It will be a tally in the unwanted contact from you column. And the more unwanted contact your child receives from anyone on your behalf, whether it's you, your sister, your pastor, your therapist, or whoever, the longer she may need to stay away in order to get the distance or the time that she requested. So that's number 2. Third-party contact could easily count against you if there is a no-contact request in place. Number 3. Your child might interpret the use of a third party as a cowardly act. She may wonder why you're not picking up the phone or reaching out yourself if you want to talk to her. And if you haven't done that yet, or you've done it only once or twice in the past year, that is a fair question. Obviously, you can't control what other people think of you, but knowing that some people lose respect for those who send in others to make their case, you can decide on the impact that it might have on your reputation. Actually, not just with your child, but with yourself. How do you feel about sending someone else into the fray instead of doing your own communicating? So number 3 is the potential loss of respect, either from your child or from yourself. Number 4, whoever contacts your child has no authority over him. So why should this person's words change your child's behavior? Your child will have heard it all before, by the way, from many other people. There's a ton of social pressure on estranged adults to forgive their parents and reunite with them. They don't necessarily want to hear it from your third party since they hear it all the time, unsolicited. So it's not clear how much influence this third party can actually have anyway. Number 5. Your intermediary is not you, which means they might say something totally off base or that you would never have said yourself that has a negative impact. If your child feels guilt-tripped or shamed by this person, she may overcompensate by moving even further away from you. So intermediaries can be not only ineffective, but actually make things worse between you. A good therapist or counselor is probably more likely to avoid doing that kind of damage. But again, remember my last point, they have no authority over your child. So number 5 was third parties can actually make things worse depending on how they go about it. Number 6, your child may be angry that you shared personal information with this third party. As soon as that person contacts them to talk about you or brings up the subject of the estrangement, your child will be aware that you've been talking about him behind his back. And doing things that anger or offend your child when he's already estranged, well, I'm sure you'll agree that will probably not endear you to him or help you reconcile. So the breach of confidentiality inherent in third-party involvement might anger your child. That was number 6. And lastly, number 7, using a go-between doesn't help you and your child learn to communicate better. It's almost an acknowledgement of the gap between you and a symbol of your own lack of confidence that the two of you can ever have a productive conversation. So be careful what you model by allowing someone else to talk with your child on your behalf. Let me quickly summarize those 7 concerns about using a third party. Number 1, if you haven't done absolutely everything you can from an informed, educated position, it's premature to even think about using someone else. Number 2, unwanted contact from anyone about you could be counted against you. Number 3, by letting someone else handle your problem, you might lose the respect of your child and possibly yourself. Number 4, your intermediary has no authority with your child who's heard it all before anyway. Number 5, the third party might say or do something that makes your situation worse than it already is. Number 6, your child could be angry that you told someone else about your relationship. And number 7, it won't help you and your child develop better communication. Now, there is another perspective that I'd like to mention. Inside the library at reconnectionclub.com, we have an interview with a private investigator, Thomas Martin. And from his point of view, as someone who's been hired to locate estranged family members, the use of an intermediary can actually be helpful and keep things from going horribly off track. His advice in that interview was to make sure there was a third party to manage the conversation. But I believe he said that because he's dealt with so many parents who don't have the tools to communicate effectively with their children and keep things from escalating badly. And that doesn't have to be you. Don't make the mistakes that so many other well-meaning but not well-prepared parents have made. Get yourself some good, solid, timely support in your efforts to reconnect with your child or children. And you might want to start by reading my book, Reconnecting with Your Estranged Adult Child, and consider spending some time with me and also other estranged parents in our friendly private community at reconnectionclub.com. Until next time, remember that you are a loving, lovable, and still growing human being. So please take good care of yourself. Bye for now. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Reconnection Club podcast, I invite you to check out reconnectionclub.com. The Reconnection Club is for parents at any stage of estrangement from their adult, child, or children. So whether you've just realized there's trouble between you, you've been living with estrangement for years, or you're newly reconciled but still walking on eggshells, the Reconnection Club is your essential resource for information, support, and continued personal growth. With our courses and workshops, expert interviews, monthly Q&A calls, and a friendly, active community, the Reconnection Club is a wonderful place to be for anyone suffering the pain of estrangement from an adult, child, or children. So check it out at reconnectionclub.com.